Welcome back. We got UFC 329 happening this weekend with the main event of Conor McGregor returning to face off Max Holloway, the rematch, the sequel. You know, this is going to be a great one. This is going to be cinema, you know, the sequel, you know, get it? Wordplay. But either way, I can't wait for this one. This is going to be a banger. Even though, listen, the hype isn't really there. It doesn't feel like a Conor McGregor fight week. You know, we're a week away from the, you know, this weekend for this fight. It really doesn't feel like it. Now, it could be said because, you know, his last fight, he pulled out against Michael Chandler, like, what was it, 2024? But, you know, it gave a lasting impression that, oh, this dude is a pull-out merchant. But he's not a pull-out merchant. You know, he hasn't pulled out any other fight except for that one. But at the same time, we got the World Cup happening right now, which is a much bigger sport than MMA. Way bigger. And today, it is USA versus Belgium. I'm going to be going live for USA versus Belgium later today when that matchup starts. Can't wait for, oh my goodness, if we get knocked out. But anyways, back to this. Yeah, I'm going to be giving my predictions for every single fight on the card, so timestamps below. But let's start with the first fight on the card. We got at flyweight. This will not open up for some reason, but anyways, we got Costa versus Cody Durden for the first fight on the card. Both fighters already fought twice this year, so both fighters, this is their third fight of this year, and you know they're gonna be very active this year. You know what it seems like, but anyway, stylistically, Costa, great boxer, KO power for sure. But Cody Durden, listen, he can get bullied in the striking for sure. It's just Cody Durden is much bigger, and he's got that grappling that I don't think Costa hasn't seen the level of grappling that, you know, Durden can bring to this fight. And so I'm confident in Durden going out there and taking down Costa, controlling him, and get a decision win. I'm not sure if he gets a, you know, submission. Costa can be a bit tricky, but Costa has been, out grappled before by lesser grapplers. I don't think he's even faced a grappler yet. Maybe he has, but I don't remember right now. But Cody Durden is the best grappler Costa's gonna be facing off with. Bigger. I do think he's gonna, that's gonna, play a factor into this fight. So give me Durden by decision. Win a couple, win like maybe at least 2 rounds in the grappling by control time. And maybe Costa wins the third one, but by rounds, Durden wins a decision. Next up at middleweight, we got Ryan Gandra versus Zachary Reese. Interesting matchup. I do like this one. Ryan Gandra on the come up at middleweight, KO power. He is a prospect to watch out for a fact, and he can be pretty good. He can be dangerous for sure. He's got the KO power, like I said. He's got the karate stance, blitz, thing he has going on. But for the most part, when he does actually start striking, he gets sloppy. He gets too aggressive. He kind of leaves himself quite open to get countered by you can say another heavy hitter middleweight. But that's not Zachary Reese. Zachary Reese isn't really a counter striker. He doesn't have KO power really of his own. Zachary Reese has been improving. He's been looking much better in his last couple fights. It's just Zachary Reese, I don't think he has the tools to stop a Ryan Gandra in the striking or in the grappling. And so I am going to go with Ryan Gandra, getting past Zachary Reese. Gandra, he's on a KO winning streak. And I think he's probably going to tally up another KO win on his resume and get it done by first round KO win. I can see Gandra going out there, dropping Reese pretty early on. Reese, gets back up, survives, and then later in the first round, Gandra drops him once again and then finishes him with a ground and pound. So give me first round KO win for Ryan Gandra. Next up at bantamweight, we got Farid Basharat versus Ethan Ewing. Our blockhead king is going to get it done by first round KO win. He's gonna grab Basharat. He's gonna put him up against the gates. He's gonna beat the shit out. No, I'm joking. Ethan Ewing, Basharat, they're both pretty good. They're both well-rounded. 2 guys on the come-up. This is the actual good Basharat, the undefeated Basharat. His brother, he's the lesser one, though. The one where their dad ignores. And he's like, oh, Farid, come to me. Yes, you are my favorite son. No, anyways, Basharat, he's well-rounded. He's well-rounded, great striking, great grappling. But the thing is, Ethan Ewing is also just as well-rounded, if not even slightly more well-rounded. Better striking, better grappling. And let's just put it this way. Basharat doesn't have the grappling of a Rafael Estevez. He doesn't have the striking of a Malcolm Wilmaker. But he's well-rounded. It's just, when you have 2 well-rounded guys, you can now have to gauge who has the better here, who has the better there. And the thing is, Ethan Ewing, which teeters the skill to his side, it's the power. Ethan Ewing has power. Basharat has pillow punches. I think that in its own is gonna be a big factor for Ethan Ewing. You know, they're both well-rounded, but one has power, one doesn't. I'm gonna go with Ewing realistically. Listen, Basharat, listen, respect to him, he's pretty good, so I don't think he's gonna get finished in the first round. But I do think he's gonna get finished in the second round. That's where I do think Ewing's probably gonna get it done. So yeah, give me Ewing, second round KO win. Future champ. Very rarely do I say someone's gonna be a future champ, but Ethan Ewing, in my opinion, is gonna be a future champ. He's pretty good. Next up at middleweight, we got Damian Pinas, not the other one. I'm not gonna pronounce it any other way other than Pinas. But anyways, we got him versus Cesar Almeida, former Glory kickboxer. This dude fought Alex Pereira, and he hasn't really looked that great in the UFC. He's still, pretty good kickboxer, very technical, chopping low kicks. He can chop down on Pinas' lead leg and slow down Pinas. The thing is, Pinas, he is another up-and-coming prospect. Like, you can kind of say he's like another Ateba Gautier, someone with insane kill power, or Ryan Gandra. The thing is, Pinas has, the striking to back up the power, unlike, someone else. This dude has actual technical boxing, very quick 1-2s down the pipe. And Cesar Almeida, he's like up there in age now. He's like 37, 38, around there. His age is showing in his fights. His speed has slowed down. His activity has slowed down in his fights. And his reaction speed, the most important thing, has slowed down. He kind of has been eating punches where he doesn't see them coming. His opponent coming into range and he eats the shots. You can't do that against Damian Pinas. Someone who's going to enter range with a very quick, 1-2. Boom, boom. The straight shots, not hook shots or anything like that, where you kind of see them coming and there's like less range. No, clean 1-2 down the pipe, longer range shots. And I do think he's going to drop Almeida and then finish him with ground and pound in the first round. And that's kind of how I see it. This is Damian Pinas' era. This is his era. He's going to get it done. And I do think he's going to be able to climb the rankings at middleweight pretty high, in my opinion. So I do think this dude has a lot of potential, and he's been training in Jose Aldo's gym, so there's also that. His grappling, in my opinion, is not going to be a huge question, especially in this fight where it's a kickboxer. But yeah, give me first round KO win for Damian Pinas. Next up at women's flyweights, we got Tracy Cortez versus Wayne Cong. I'm gonna go with my Chinese queen, Wayne Cong, getting it done. She's got better striking. She's gonna dominate Cortez in the striking. Cortez, she has no self-respect. She has no self-respect. Wayne Cong does. She is our Mulan. She has self-respect. She has that warrior spirit. And I'm gonna go with Wayne Cong, the Joker, by domination in the striking. Now, there is the grappling, but I'm gonna ignore that. I don't care. I'm gonna go with Wayne Cong, dominating Cortez in the striking. I do think she's the better striker, and I do think she can probably defend the grappling Cortez, keep it on the feet, and the Joker, is gonna win. Decision. Now on to this fight, featherweight. We got Luke Riley. Luke, right? I don't know. I can't do an English accent. I suck at it. But anyways, we got Kamaka the third. Interesting matchup. Luke Riley, he does his third fight in the UFC. He should be fighting up, but no, he's getting Kamaka, someone who, he was in the UFC a couple years ago, did not so great. He did pretty bad, to be blunt. He did pretty bad, gets cut, gets re-signed, and then his first fight back in the UFC earlier this year, it was a very, very close fight against someone else making their UFC debut. It got kind of sloppy. It got kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It was just a very brawly type of performance. But at the same time, Luke Riley, his last fight against Michael Aswell or something like that, Michael Aswell, same performance, sloppy, back and forth striking, no clear-cut winner, very close fight. And so maybe the UFC is looking at Luke Riley being a hyped up prospect, one of the bigger prospects people are looking out for to become, like, you can say, someone higher up at featherweight. But they looked at his last performance. They're like, ooh, he didn't look that great against someone who isn't that good.
And there's like, okay, let's slow down his progress, let him build up, have more time. He's still kind of young, have time to build up. We have seen this with other prospects, that are already named. But yeah, they're giving the same treatment to Luke Riley. Slow down the pace, have him fight these cans, and then finally, once he starts looking much better, finally start giving him higher up, competition. But in my opinion, this is gonna be another close fight again for Luke Riley. I don't think this is gonna be an easy fight for Luke Riley. They both look around the same skill level. They're both very similar strikers. They're both brawlers. They're both hit hard. I'm gonna go with Luke. I am gonna go with Luke Riley by decision, but it's gonna be a very close fight. I don't think it's gonna be an easy fight for Luke Riley. And if it does come down to a split decision, if Kamaka wins it, I doubt they're gonna give it to him. I do think they're gonna give it to Luke Riley. We already have seen, up and coming, English, prospects with hype behind them, lose but still win. If you know what I mean, someone who is on this card as well is who I'm talking about. But either way, I am gonna go with Luke Riley. Even if he loses, they're still gonna give him the decision win, in my opinion. If it's very close, and so I'm gonna go with Luke Riley by decision, in my opinion. Bantamweight, we got Cody Garbrandt versus Adrian Yanez. Somehow Cody is sneaking his way past the UFC matchmakers, and he's been getting onto some of these amazing cards. He was on UFC 300. He's now on this card. He's been in other pretty good cards. And I say that because he hasn't been good in a long time. Listen, former champ, gotta give him respect. These are some people's goats. Cody Garbrandt is on the GOAT list for some people, but or he is the GOAT, but he hasn't been good in a long time. His last performances were ugly. His only good performance was against Ronnie Barcelos in the first round, and that was it. His last fight was a win, but he was going to lose if they didn't take points away from that one Chinese fighter that was making his UFC debut. And Cody Garbrandt barely won because, he won by, you could say, technicality. The Chinese fighter got points taken away from him, so naturally he lost based off points. But yeah, that's not a good look for Cody Garbrandt. You want to win because you win, and not because your opponent was cheating, which you still want to punish cheating. It's just, for Cody Garbrandt's case into future matchups, is not a good thing, like entirely. You win, but you don't win it in a good way. By the way, we got Adrian Yanez in front of him. Adrian Yanez hasn't been looking that good as well. This dude hasn't been the same since that Rob Font fight. His confidence, you can tell it's been stripped away from him. But listen, he's still been doing pretty good in the last two fights. His second fight was against that one undefeated prospect, which is not that good. But he's not defeated. I think Marcos already lost. But yeah, Marcos, that dude, he lost. Close fight. Arguably, Yanez should have won. And his last fight was against Ricky Simon. And arguably, Yanez got robbed. He should have won it. It shouldn't have been a draw. But either way, I do think Adrian Yanez, even though he hasn't been looking that great in his last couple fights, he's still at a certain level in the UFC, what I'm trying to say. While Cody Garbrandt is lower. And I do think Yanez's boxing is going to be a pretty detrimental. I can't say anymore. He's going to be pretty good in this fight. I do think his boxing is going to matter. And I'm going to go with Yanez. All boxing Cody Garbrandt, just punishing Cody Garbrandt when he enters range without boxing, and get a decision win. Heavyweight, we got Gable Steveson, not Stevenson. Gable Steveson versus Ellison. Now, I see Ellison, he's pretty decent. I do not know who this Gable Steveson is. I do not know him. He's making his UFC debut. He might be pretty good. I'm not sure. But he might be like a future champ, maybe. He might be like the best wrestler, American wrestler we have seen. Maybe he might train with John Jones. I'm not sure. Maybe he won a court case based off a loophole. Maybe that's what happened. I'm not sure who this guy is though. And because I do not know who this guy is, I'm gonna go with Ellison winning by first round KO win. Gable Steveson might be a wrestler. He might go out there, go for a takedown right away. And Ellison goes out there like Derek Lewis, goes out there, just jumps for a flying knee, gets a KO win in the first 5 seconds. So give me an upset win for Ellison by domination over I'm joking. I don't know. He might be a rep-ist. But yeah, anyways, Ellison, get it done for us. First round KO win. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. Anyways, next last fights on the prelims, we got light heavyweight. We got Robert Whittaker versus Nikita Krylov. This is an interesting one. Robert Whittaker versus Nikita Krylov. Robert Whittaker, this is his third weight class. You know, he started off at welterweight. You know, he got dominated by Stephen Thompson. You know, he adopted the karate, you know, blitz stance type of style. Moves up to middleweight. That style works wonders for him. Becomes champ. Loses to Israel Adesanya. Goes on a winning streak. Loses to Israel Adesanya once again, which he arguably won the rematch. But either way, still does pretty good at middleweight. And then he starts losing, you know, against DDP, against Hamza, against RDR, what's his name? Rainer the Ritter. You know, he's been slowing down for sure, but he still has some, you know, some good performances sprinkled in there against Ikram Aliskerov, even though Ikram Aliskerov somehow legally was able to weight cut twice in the span of a week, and they allowed him to fight Robert Whittaker, which Robert Whittaker has gotten a KO since a long time against a really dehydrated Ikram Aliskerov. But still, a win is a win. You listen, a win is a win. But his last actual good performance, you could say, is against Paulo Costa, which, if you do not remember, Paulo Costa moved up to 205 and he dominated as, what's his name? Is Azimad Nurgamanov, something like that? Azimako, something like that. Some Russian fighter who was undefeated. I think he was undefeated. But Paulo Costa dominated with that speed advantage, lighter man skill. And Robert Whittaker can come up, you know, up to this weight class and dominate just as much as well. You know, he was pretty fast at middleweight. He can be very fast at 205. The thing is, Nikita Krylov is the favorite, which I'm looking at minus 170. And there is a solid argument because Nikita Krylov, he is an actual 205er. He's huge, unlike that one Azmat dude who's like 5'10". Nikita Krylov is an actual 205er. He's huge. He's got KO power. Robert Whittaker, his chin has been looking kind of suspect. And so this really just comes down to one thing, in my opinion, this fight, which is respect. If Krylov respects Whittaker, I do think Whittaker wins. He's going to have the space to work, you know, against Krylov, the speed advantage, the footwork, move around Krylov, you know, get into range, hit, and move out of range and not get hit. I do think that's going to be the Whittaker that we're going to get if Krylov respects him. But if Krylov does not respect Whittaker, I do think Krylov goes out there and just dominates Whittaker. He's bigger. Whittaker has pillow punches. Chin for chin, Krylov, it seems like he's much better. Whittaker's not going to be able to chin Krylov either way, so there's that. And Krylov is coming off a KO win over Medisas Bakakis. He's coming off a pretty good win, while Whittaker has been suffering a couple of losses, which doesn't really mean much, but I'm just trying to like set up what I'm trying to say. Krylov can go out there, not respect Whittaker, not respect his power, not respect his speed, cut off, you know, use his size to cut off the cage against Whittaker and just start landing bombs. And when he starts landing bombs, I do think Krylov's going to get the better of Whittaker. And I do think he can get it done by, like, you can say, second round KO. You know, hurt Whittaker in the first round by a lot. And the second round comes to finally hunt down Whittaker and finish him. That's really realistic if Krylov doesn't respect Whittaker. If he respects Whittaker, Whittaker wins this. Now, my prediction is going to be, I do think Krylov respects Whittaker. He's going to respect his elders because Whittaker is like a year older than Krylov, which is crazy. You look at Krylov and you think those dude is 40 years old. And you look at Whittaker and you're like, oh, this guy, you know, he's a 30-year-old. No, Whittaker is like a year older than Krylov. I think Krylov's like 33 and Whittaker's like 34. So, or maybe Krylov, I don't know, something like that. But yeah. But anyway, I'm going to go with Whittaker. He's going to win. He's going to have the space. Krylov's going to respect him. He's going to give him the space to work with. And I'm going to go with Whittaker by decision. It is a very close fight. It really just comes down to that, like I said. But yeah, I'm going to go with Whittaker by decision. He's going to have the space. He's going to be able to blitz in and out against Krylov. He's very fast, Whittaker, and his reaction speed is on point. And I do think he can move away out of Krylov's big bombs. And so yeah, I'm going to go with Whittaker by decision. Lightweight. Ooh, I almost said it. I almost said the word. I almost said the K word. But Bobby Green versus Terrence McKinney. I do think the way Bobby Green fights is not going to work well for him against a Terrence McKinney. Someone who just goes out to your face and just tries to get the first round KO win or first round submission win. King Green, you look at him. the way he's standing right now, his hands low, that's exactly how he looks in the cage. And that style does not work well against someone who's coming at you at mock speed, trying to kill you. King Green, this style works really well when his opponent is respecting his style, as in Bobby Green has the space. His opponent enters range from down below, from below his waist. The punches come up and they land. What's it? Bobby Green does well on the back foot, but the thing is, Terrence McKinney pressures you on the back foot. I do think Bobby Green is gonna not do well against a style of Terrence McKinney. Someone's gonna go out there like some crackhead behind a 7-Eleven where you like make eye contact with him for like a split second. I do think he's gonna go out there, hurt Bobby Green before Bobby Green hurts McKinney and drops him, and either gets ground and pound finish or submission. I'm gonna go with submission, but I'm gonna go with McKinney either way, getting it done in the first round. And yeah, this is gonna be our pick for this fight. Flyweight, Brandon Royval versus Loner Kavanagh. This is a banger. I love it. Another English prospect on the rise against someone who, a UFC vet, Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval, one of the least respected fighters in the UFC, but I do think this dude's pretty good. He should get his flowers, but I guess his walkout to that one TikTok song kind of like ruined a lot of people's opinion of him. But either way, he's still very good. Listen, in my opinion, this is gonna be a very similar fight as in Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. As in, it's gonna be a banger. That fight was arguably the best fight of the year for 2025. This could be the best fight of 2026, and so I am really looking forward to this fight. Very similar stylistically as well. Both fighters, technical, fast-paced kickboxers, and it's gonna be a very fun, technical kickboxing match between both of these fighters. If I'm gonna have to lean towards someone, I am gonna lean towards Royval. Kavanagh has a win over Brandon Moreno. Short notice, step up fight. He proved he is like a top 10 flyweight. It's just I do think Brandon Royval, the things he brings are slightly different than Moreno, as in the jab. Royval's jab is on point. He was jabbing up Joshua Van, someone who is kind of small, but he still has that counter boxing, and he forced Royval to use the jab in order for him to slip and counter Royval. But Royval was still landing it either way. He was still landing the jab consistently, and the cross as well. Very clean boxer, and obviously he's got the calf kicks. He's a pretty good kickboxer. Loner Kavanagh, he is a kickboxer as well. Very good kickboxer. I do think the boxing side of this fight is where it's gonna favor Royval, in my opinion. But Kavanagh, listen, he's got some good boxing. He's got some good. Oh, my bad. So good, what's it called? Like, not a jump in. I forgot the exact word I'm looking for. But he jumps into range with those punches. Leap in, I guess. I don't know. But he like jumps into range without boxing, and he can catch Royval on the back foot. But I do think Royval is gonna catch Kavanagh either way with the jab, and that's kind of how I'm seeing this fight play out. Good, back and forth calf kicks from both fighters, a couple of good punches. It's just I do think Royval is gonna be the more active striker in there. He was out striking Joshua Van, by the way, out striking him. And he was out striking Joshua Van. Joshua Van landed the more significant punches because of the counter boxing, but Kavanagh does not have the counter boxing of Van. He doesn't have the KO power of Manel Kape, which Royval's coming off a KO loss to that guy. But at this point, Manel Kape can KO Joshua Van. He can KO Pantoja because Kape is on like a 5 KO win streak, and so yeah. I don't think Royval losing to Kape by KO is going to mean much against Loner Kavanagh. It could happen, but I'm not sure. And obviously, Kavanagh doesn't have the grappling of Tatsuro Taira, and Royval has a win over Tatsuro Taira, so I don't think that's going to matter at all. Kavanagh has some good grappling, some good offensive wrestling. It's just I don't think it's going to matter too much in this fight. So yeah, I'm going to go with Brandon Royval. I'm getting it done by decision. And it's going to be a close fight, in my opinion, but I do think Royval is going to land the more significant strikes, the more strike numbers in general, and win a decision win. Bantamweight. We got Corey Sandhagen versus Mario Bautista. I'm going to be genuinely honest. I did a zero film study for this fight. I just didn't bother anymore. I was like, at this point, I'm like, oh, it's whatever. And so, based off vibes, I'm gonna go with Mario Bautista. It seems like he has the better striking. It seems like his grappling has improved since their first fight. This is a rematch, like just like the main event. This is a rematch. They fought years ago. Cortez Sandhagen won the fight. He got it done by submission. But Bautista, that was his debut fight in the UFC. Sandhagen already had like a couple UFC fights, and so Bautista gets submitted. But Bautista does pretty good after that. I think he has like one other loss except, aside from the Umar loss, which was recent. But yeah, he has like two other losses aside from, one other loss aside from the Corey Sandhagen and Umar fights. But and yeah, Bautista's on a winning streak. He's doing pretty good. Loses to Umar, but then he comes back for what's his name, Vinicius Oliveira. And so Mario Bautista, I do think he's pretty good. He's improved a lot. And this is a much closer fight than the first fight for sure. Corey Sandhagen hasn't really improved much since once you start entering the rankings. And also, Corey Sandhagen almost got finished against Merab. You can't do that. You cannot almost get finished against Merab and then do good in the striking against Mario Bautista, in my opinion. I'm gonna go Mario Bautista. I do think Corey Sandhagen has been, I do think Mario Bautista has improved past a Corey Sandhagen, in my opinion. So better striker, grappling. He's gonna be able to defend it and win a decision. I don't know. I don't know. Lightweight, co-main, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Paddy Pimblett. I can't do an English accent. My bad. Benoit Saint-Denis. Every single fight he goes out there, he goes for the grappling. Most grapplers start with the striking, into the grappling. No, this dude starts off with the grappling and then maybe into the striking later. Benoit Saint-Denis has been looking pretty good since those the 2-fight losing streak he suffered against Dustin Poirier and Moicano. And Moicano fight was the only fight I think he wasn't able to get the grappling off against Moicano. But I do think Benoit Saint-Denis, after those two fights, he changed his gym and he's back. Just like Anderson Silva said, I'm back. Benoit Saint-Denis is back. He's back, Bagoo. I don't know. That was French for you, I guess. But anyways, Benoit Saint-Denis, I think he's much better now. More better grappling, more better striker. He's gonna go out there. He's for sure gonna take down Paddy Pimblett in the first round and control him. Paddy Pimblett got taken down by Michael Chandler and controlled, and so that gives me confidence in Benoit Saint-Denis doing much better. In my opinion, Benoit Saint-Denis might be the best grappler, maybe second best behind Arman, but I do think Benoit Saint-Denis is probably the best grappler we have seen at lightweight as of now. Arman hasn't fought really. I mean, he's been doing grappling matches, but in RAF, but we really haven't seen him in the UFC how well that does. He did pretty good against Charles Oliveira, but Benoit Saint-Denis, I do think he's probably the best, maybe behind Charles, maybe behind Arman. But he's still a very, high level grappler. Much better than Paddy Pimblett, in my opinion. Paddy Pimblett is probably like a top 10 grappler at lightweight, in my opinion. I mean, there's not much grapplers. I mean, there is Arman, Charles, Benoit, Benoit Dariush. But yeah, but anyways, I do think Benoit Saint-Denis has the better grappling, the better wrestling, the better judo. You can't say Paddy Pimblett has the better BJJ, but I don't see him submitting Benoit Saint-Denis. I mean, maybe it could happen, but in my opinion, it's probably gonna be like DC on commentary, like eating, I don't know, like chicken or whatever. He's gonna be like, oh my goodness, Benoit Saint-Denis, take him down. Oh my goodness, Paddy Pimblett is going for the guillotine. Oh my goodness, he's gonna get it. Oh, it slipped out. Oh, he doesn't have the liver bridge anymore. Something like that. I think that's what's gonna happen for Benoit Saint-Denis versus Paddy Pimblett. Where Benoit Saint-Denis is gonna take down Paddy. Paddy's probably gonna go for a submission, triangle choke or whatever, and he's not gonna get it. And Benoit Saint-Denis is gonna still be on top and then start landing nasty ground and pound. This dude has nasty ground and pound as well. Don't forget that. And so on the ground, I do think Benoit Saint-Denis dominates Paddy Pimblett. On the ground, did I say on the feet? But on the feet, it could be close. But Paddy Pimblett, Benoit Saint-Denis. It's going to be a sloppy boppy fest on the feet. I don't think one's going to dominate the other. I do think Paddy Pimblett is slightly better than Benoit Saint-Denis on the feet. He didn't do that bad against Justin Gaethje in hindsight, but I don't think he's that good still. I do think he is kind of still an industry plant, because name me a good win of Paddy Pimblett. Name me a good win. I'm being genuinely honest. Name me a good win of Paddy Pimblett. If you say Michael Chandler, no, that's not a good win. Benoit Saint-Denis has much better wins over... I mean, at the same time, Benoit Dariush kind of is like Michael Chandler, but he's got Rufy, he's got Dan Hooker in a way. I don't know, but he's got better wins than Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett really hasn't fought anybody. He really hasn't fought anybody. Look at his resume. And his loss against Justin Gaethje, even though he had a good performance, it's still a loss. And so I am going with Benoit Saint-Denis dominating the grappling, landing nasty ground and pound, just destroying the hell out of Paddy Pimblett. You know, he is probably the only straight dude in France, Benoit Saint-Denis. Just saying. So he's got all the testosterone that French people have. He sucked it up. All these French dudes are extremely gay, and so I do think he's gonna go out there and dominate Paddy Pimblett in the grappling. Striking is not gonna matter too much. I do think Benoit Saint-Denis is gonna really go heavy in the grappling and give me a decision win. If this is a 3-rounder, then the decision win. 5-rounder, Benoit Saint-Denis 4th round submission win. So there you go. Now for the main event, we got at welterweight, Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway. You know what I mean? That was not Max Holloway. I'm sorry. No more impressions. This fight really just comes down to realism and fantasy. Realism is Max Holloway. Fantasy is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, the only things you can really say about him is his power, and this is welterweight. That's really it. And that in its own, you're ignoring real life. You gotta say Conor McGregor has power. Okay, he's got power, and guess who else has power? Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, the same Dustin Poirier that went to war with Islam Makhachev. By the way, it's not, you can say old man Dustin Poirier, but that's still the same version that went to war with Islam Makhachev. He went to war with Ellison, and that fight was at featherweight, by the way. He moved up to lightweight, fully built up to lightweight. You can see he legit looked like a lightweight on the night against Justin Gaethje. Dominates Justin Gaethje, gets it done in the 5th round, the last couple seconds, and then moves back down to 145. He was drained. You watch the weight cut of that fight against Ellison, the weigh-ins. He was drained. He was like dead, basically. It was like that one meme of Max Holloway, basically. And he was extremely dehydrated. He's still doing pretty good against Ellison. Gets finished, but that was a 145. Comes back up against Dustin Poirier. Does pretty good. Wins the trilogy. He lost twice to Dustin Poirier. Wins the trilogy. And then his last fight was against Charles Oliveira, but Charles Oliveira, he's not gonna fight like Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor doesn't fight like Charles Oliveira, so there's not really too much to say for that fight. But yeah, Max Holloway lost in the grappling, and yeah, Conor McGregor. The real life thing is he's 37, going on 38. Hasn't fought in 5 years. He could have fought 2 years ago, but he pulled out, got injured. You can say he's still been active. He's still been in training sessions in the gym. Sparring, whatever. But Max Holloway has been active in the cage, as in fighting other guys, going to 5 rounds. His cardio's on point. His striking's on point. He's been fighting other elite guys. He's still in his prime as well. He's still like 33, 34 around there. Relatively, I guess you can say not, because he's not champ anymore, but he's still that, I think he's still that guy. The thing is, listen, Conor McGregor, he was that guy. He was that guy. When, in his come up at featherweight, into lightweight, he was that guy. He legit was probably the best striker in the UFC and MMA. His fluidity, his timing, his management, his distance management was all on point. It was so hard to deal with that southpaw karate style McGregor brought to the table against these other guys. Chen, Jose Aldo, in 13, 14 seconds. And then after that, loses to Nate Diaz. Now, going into the fight, people say, oh, this is a welterweight. That's the second point. Conor McGregor has kill power. And the second point is, this is a welterweight, which favors Conor McGregor. Now, really, does it really favor Conor McGregor? Really? Does it? This is not the same thing as Jon Jones versus DC at heavyweight, because they never fought at heavyweight. There was always that question, will Jon Jones face off DC at heavyweight? And it never happened. Jon Jones said, oh, DC has an advantage at heavyweight. DC was I think at the time, undefeated when he had his rivalry against Jon Jones. He was undefeated at heavyweight. He has, a bunch of heavyweight fights. He is very experienced at heavyweight. And obviously the fights at 205 against Jon Jones, he was much smaller. And so obviously the fight, you could say DC, at heavyweight had the advantage over Jon Jones, even though Jon Jones probably still wins at heavyweight. But either way, the point I'm trying to make is Conor McGregor was originally supposed to fight RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos, after the Jose Aldo fight for that second belt. You know, he was a champ at the time, RDA. RDA pulls out. They need to scramble, you know, a fight quickly, and they get Nate Diaz. And because, you know, the fight was very close from happening, the fight date, it was too dangerous to weight cut, and so the fight was at welterweight. And especially because Conor McGregor weighed in at 168. If you didn't know, or you know, you're like a LARPer, a casual, I guess you can say. Whatever. Anyways, he was 168 out that, you know, in that fight. That fight was not a welterweight fight in my opinion. That was a lightweight fight where they just didn't weight cut. It was not an actual welterweight fight where these guys are weight cutting to welterweight. This is an actual welterweight guy. Nate Diaz before that fight was a lightweight. Like his whole career he was a lightweight up until that Conor McGregor fight. And then the rematch happens. Well, before I get to that, Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz, which he's kind of similar to Max Holloway in a sense. You know, good chin, cardio, and you know, stylistically, Nate Diaz kind of was a very tough test for McGregor in his prime, a prime Conor McGregor. Okay, but anyways, rematch happens. Conor McGregor was like, let's not have the fight at 155. I want to beat him in the exact same conditions, aka welterweight once again. And the fight was at welterweight. Not because, you know, Conor McGregor was like, I feel great at welterweight. This is my actual weight class. No, it was because he wanted to beat Nate Diaz in the exact same conditions, and he did. But it was a very close fight. Arguably, he lost. And so his two performances at welterweight weren't the greatest against a Nate Diaz, by the way, which at the time Nate Diaz was pretty good, but yeah. And then after that, Conor McGregor finally, you know, fights for the belt at 155 against Eddie Alvarez, who, you know, once he got to the you can say the title fight, Eddie Alvarez took away the belt from RDA, and so that fight happens, and Conor McGregor, he gives his best performance ever in his UFC career and dominates Eddie Alvarez. But a lot of people say he's the worst champ. It's kind of hard to tell if Eddie Alvarez was going to be like one of the worst champs ever, because, you know, he lost straight away to Conor McGregor, a prime Conor McGregor. Is, you know, at 155, his actual weight class, you can say. And so it's kind of hard to tell if Eddie Alvarez was a horrible champ. But either way, Conor McGregor after that goes on to fight Floyd Mayweather in boxing. He takes time away from the sport, and then he comes back and against a Khabib Nurmagomedov. I can't even say his last name, but I'm sorry. Nurmagomedov. Anyways, Conor McGregor comes back and loses. Now that's not even the same thing as him coming back against Max Holloway, where Conor McGregor, they're, you know, not that bad against Khabib, and, you know, in certain contexts in the grappling, but against Max Holloway, this is not a 2-year off where he returns in his prime. This is Conor McGregor 5 years off, out of his prime. And so it's like you can't even use that for your thing. But anyways, Conor McGregor comes back, loses to Khabib, and then he fights Donald Cerrone, which at the same time I think he also took like 2 years off to fight Donald Cerrone. And that fight was at welterweight, his third welterweight fight. But that's not the same thing as DC having extensive career at heavyweight. This is like another lightweight dude, Donald Cerrone, someone who for majority of his career was at lightweight, fought a couple times at welterweight, and then moves back down to lightweight, and then, you know, he moved up once again to welterweight to face off Conor McGregor. But I do think Conor McGregor was going to destroy Donald Cerrone, old man Cerrone, in a round at lightweight. So I don't think it being at welterweight mattered, in my opinion. McGregor for sure was going to finish Cerrone in less than a minute at lightweight. So you can say, oh, Conor McGregor has experience at welterweight. I don't think that matters. I don't think that's an actual statement. If you put in context, you know, the Diaz fights and the Cerrone fights, in my opinion, I don't think that matters. I don't think that's a true statement, especially if you know your things. I don't think this being at welterweight, his fourth welterweight fight against another non-welterweight is gonna matter. And I do think he gets murdered against Carlos Prates if that fight originally happened. But either way, this is, you know, not a welterweight. This is a lightweight or featherweight. That's a lightweight who now is fighting out welterweight, Max Holloway. Someone who's been active in his prime still. He's 34, active, having great performances over these, you know, elite level guys are still at 155 or featherweight. You know, they didn't do that bad. Conor McGregor was that guy, but he's not that guy anymore. He's not that guy. He's old now. And listen, I love Conor McGregor. Whenever I talk about MMA, my MMA picks, I'm never biased. I love to keep it neutral and just based off what I think rationally who's going to win. And rationally, I'm going to go with Max Holloway. I love Conor. I love his press conferences. They're so fun. He has a great personality. It makes perfect sense why this guy is the best, the most famous fighter in the UFC. He basically made Khabib's career. And, we're going to be honest. He made Khabib famous. And by proxy, Islam, next to Khabib, Islam is also a star, I do think that's like a big, thing for these guys. And that's why, these guys, Khabib, he's a big star too. Yeah, because of Conor. Because Conor is the biggest star. What's that word? He like rubbed off Khabib or something like that. I forgot how the saying is, but yeah. But anyways, Conor McGregor, great trash talk. I can't wait for the press conference. Great trash talk. He backs it up, and that's what made him a star. Is just he's had bad performances in his prime. Stylistically, Nate Diaz, kind of similar to Max Holloway. Even then, Nate Diaz in the first fight was dominating Conor McGregor in the striking. No, okay, in a sense. McGregor was dominating the first couple rounds, but McGregor was waiting for a first round KO win against Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz wasn't out. He was still there in the fight. His chin helped him. And then McGregor gassed out because he was throwing bombs against Nate Diaz. And then McGregor gassed out, and Nate Diaz was able to just start bringing it on McGregor, wearing him down, and dropped McGregor without the grappling. And then he went into the grappling, got the submission. But without the grappling, I do think Nate Diaz still would have won that fight and maybe KO McGregor in the striking. And then you put Max Holloway against an out-of-prime McGregor, 37, who hasn't trained in a long time. His cardio is going to be questionable. Max Holloway, you can say is chinny, but he was 145 against Ilya, and that was the only time he's ever been chinned ever. And it's Ilya at the same time. Even though Ilya lost to Justin Gaethje, it's still Ilya. There's these curly-haired TikTok, UFC fans saying, "Oh, Ilya lost his aura, dude." Like, you never trained MMA. You're still, you guys are bitches. You guys don't know jack shit. Ilya is still that guy. He can still bring it on. He can definitely win a rematch against Justin Gaethje if he doesn't fight like a dumbass. But either way, Max Holloway still there pretty good against Ilya. He got outgrappled by Charles, but McGregor's not gonna go out there and outgrapple Max Holloway like Charles did. And he beat Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, who after that beat Rafael Fiziev, beat Ilya. And I do think Max Holloway is still right here where Conor McGregor is here now. And we have seen guys that are still active just age out right now. Israel Adesanya. There's I was gonna say Volk, but no, he's champ right now. I'm dumb. I guess you can say Michael Chandler, Benil Dariush. There's other guys out there that I'm not remembering, but I guess you can say Derek Lewis. I don't know, but either way, realistically, in my opinion, for 5 rounds, Max Holloway is going to survive. His chin is going to be pretty good at welterweight. He's not going to be dehydrated. Also, another thing I've been seeing, Conor McGregor has a bigger frame. Do people not understand what frame means? When you talk about frame, you're talking about your skeletal frame. You're not your muscle mass. Muscle mass is not frame. Muscle mass on frame, but your frame is your frame. Holloway has the bigger frame. He's much taller. I've never understood why people don't understand what frame means, but that's what that means. If I'm going to be like, actually, like that. That's what frame means. Whoops. So I'm gonna go Max Holloway by decision. I like both of these fighters. I rarely pick, do pick by bias. If I do, it's probably because of an actual reason. But listen, McGregor winning would be the best case scenario for not just the UFC, not just for McGregor, but for the fans as well. You get awesome matchups for McGregor. You got Justin Gaethje for the belt. You got Carlos Prates. You can reschedule that. You got Islam Makhachev. The narrative. Khabib for the belt at welterweight. You got Rufi. You can also do that. There's a couple good matchups there you can get for McGregor. Really good matchups. He's got one more fight left after this, so he can definitely win against Max Holloway and then get a banger matchup against someone else. But in my opinion, in real life, I do think Max Holloway has so much going for him against Conor McGregor. This is not a fantasy. He's not. Listen, Max Holloway probably is gonna fight humble. He's probably gonna be like, or like his team after the Charles Oliveira loss. They're gonna be like, let's be smarter this time around. You got out grappled. We had confidence in your takedown defense. Let's be realistic. They got Conor McGregor in front of him. Someone who has KO power. They're gonna be like, let's be realistic. He can chin you in the first. You can say the first 2 rounds. Be defensive. Just wear him out. Just wait it. You wait it out. Wait for Conor McGregor to slow down, and there you go. And I do think Conor McGregor is gonna slow down. I generally do think so. And Max Holloway, much better. I would say he would be the better striker this time around, even though Conor McGregor, in his training camps, his last recent, videos that have gone out has been, implementing the karate stance once again. But I do think that's like a call for help, or a cry for the past, rather than Conor McGregor being like, oh, he's in the karate stance. Oh, Max Holloway is doomed. Oh my goodness. No, I don't think so. I don't think he's probably just doing it just to see, like, it worked for me before. It should probably work for me now, rather than, oh, he's actually using the karate stance effectively against a Max Holloway. This version of Max Holloway and this version of McGregor. So give me Max Holloway by a 4th round KO win. I did think McGregor by that point now is gonna be too gassed. Max Holloway is gonna be, just outstriking McGregor at that point, and he's gonna get it done. McGregor's probably gonna start to crumble and get finished. And I'm gonna go 4th round KO win for Max Holloway. That's how I see this fight going. And if you think differently, let me know in the comment section below. If you came this far, like and subscribe. Once again, I'm gonna be going live for the USA versus Belgium match later today. And that's all I gotta say for this card. And if you came this far, like and subscribe, like I said. And goodbye.